Imagine a city where everything works perfectly. Streets are spotless, the subway is on time, and even the rules are enforced down to the smallest detail. That city is Singapore. But here's the catch. For some travelers, this perfection feels a little too much. Too clean, too controlled, too expensive, too polished. In other words, too perfect. So what is it about Singapore that makes some people fall in love instantly, while others can't wait to leave? Let's dive in and uncover the surprising reasons behind both the love and the criticism. First, Singapore is crazily expensive. If there's one thing that makes many travelers hesitate about Singapore, it's the cost. The city regularly ranks as one of the most expensive in the world. In 2023, the Economist Intelligence Unit named Singapore the priciest city on Earth alongside Zurich. For tourists, that means high prices on almost everything, from food to hotels to attractions. Everyday expenses add up fast. A simple bottle of water from a convenience store costs about 2 to 3 Singapore dollars, which is around $2, while the same thing in Bangkok might cost just 30 cents. A coffee at Starbucks is $6, and even fruit like apples can cost $1 to $2 each. For travelers used to cheap Southeast Asian prices, Singapore can feel like a shock. Hotels are another big expense. A budget hostel bed can be $30 to $40 a night, far higher than Kuala Lumpur or Ho Chi Minh City, where dorm beds can be under $10. Mid-range hotels in Singapore usually cost $150 to $200 per night. And if you're staying at Marina Bay Sands, the bill can easily run between $600 and $1,000 a night. By comparison, the same amount could buy a week of luxury in Bangkok. Food is a mixed bag. Hawker centers are the saving grace, where you can eat famous dishes like chicken rice or laksa for just $4 to $6. But restaurants quickly raise the bill. A simple dinner can be $30 to $40 per person, while fine dining can be hundreds. Alcohol is especially expensive. Beers often cost $12 to $15, cocktails $25 or more. For comparison, a beer in Vietnam is usually under $1. Attractions aren't cheap either. Gardens by the Bay costs about $28, the zoo is $42, and Universal Studios on Sentosa is $81. For a family of 4, just one day at Universal with food could easily top $500, much higher than similar parks in Malaysia or Indonesia. Of course, there are reasons for these high prices. Singapore is small, almost everything has to be imported, and the government keeps alcohol, cars, and tobacco heavily taxed. Even locals pay huge amounts for daily life, with car ownership costing upwards of $100,000. So, is it worth it? That depends. Some say it isn't, since the same budget buys far more in neighboring countries. Others argue the premium makes sense because Singapore offers safety, efficiency, and world-class standards you can't always expect elsewhere. But for many travelers, especially backpackers, the cost makes Singapore more of a short stopover than a long vacation. Number 2, Singapore is too strict. One of Singapore's proudest features is also one of its biggest criticisms: its rules. The city has long had a reputation for being strict, with heavy fines for things like littering, spitting, jaywalking, or even chewing gum. Yes, chewing gum is still technically banned for sale in Singapore. These rules have played a big role in shaping Singapore into one of the cleanest and safest cities in the world. But at the same time, some visitors feel as though they are walking around in a society that is a little too controlled. The penalties are no joke. Littering fines can reach as high as 1,000 Singapore dollars, which is about $740. Smoking in prohibited areas carries the same penalty, and even bringing in duty-free cigarettes is banned. While these measures are normal for locals who are used to the system, many tourists find them intimidating or excessive. This is why some travelers describe Singapore as sterile or lacking personality. They feel the strictness strips away spontaneity and makes the city seem overly polished. It's a sharp contrast to places like Ho Chi Minh City, where chaos rules the streets. Motorbikes zip past from every direction, street vendors pop up on every corner, and yet many visitors fall in love with that very unpredictability. For them, the messiness feels authentic and exciting, something they don't quite experience in Singapore's carefully managed order. Number 3, where's the culture? Another common criticism travelers have is that Singapore lacks what they call authentic culture. At first, this might sound unfair because, in reality, Singapore is a true melting pot of Chinese, Malay, Indian, and Eurasian traditions. Within a short walk, you can explore Chinatown, Little India, and Kampong Glam, and come across beautiful temples, colorful mosques, and historic churches standing side by side. On paper, that sounds like a cultural paradise. But here's the catch. Many tourists feel that these neighborhoods have been polished, commercialized, and curated in a way that makes them lose some of their raw authenticity. Instead of feeling like you've stepped into India or China, some areas can feel more like themed zones designed with visitors in mind. Take Little India, for example. While you'll still find spice shops and sari stores that give a glimpse into Indian heritage, you'll also see large, modern malls right in the middle of the district. Chinatown is another good case. It has impressive historical temples, but much of the area is filled with souvenir shops selling magnets, keychains, and mass-produced trinkets. For some travelers, this gives the impression that the cultural experience is being packaged and sold rather than lived. This is why people often compare Singapore's cultural quarters to walking through Old Delhi or the hutongs of Beijing. In those places, the atmosphere feels chaotic, raw, and alive. You're surrounded by locals going about their daily lives. In contrast, Singapore's version can feel cleaner and more organized, but also less spontaneous. For visitors seeking that real, gritty culture, Singapore sometimes comes across as too polished, almost like a curated museum exhibit rather than an organic cultural experience. And number 4, Singapore is too small and predictable. It's also important to remember that Singapore is tiny. The entire country covers just about 728 square kilometers, which actually makes it smaller than New York City. You could quite literally drive from one end to the other in under an hour. For tourists, that small size means you can see most of the big attractions in just 3 to 4 days. Once you've checked off Marina Bay Sands, strolled through gardens by the bay, spent time on Sentosa Island, visited the Singapore Zoo, and done some shopping along Orchard Road, many visitors feel like they've done Singapore. Unlike larger countries, there aren't vast regions or hidden corners waiting to be discovered. It's compact and efficient, but also limited. Because of this, Singapore often feels more like a stopover hub than a standalone holiday destination. Many travelers only spend 2 or 3 nights here before moving on to neighboring countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, or Vietnam, where their trip can stretch further, both in budget and in experiences. For some, Singapore is the perfect introduction to Southeast Asia, but not the place they choose for a long, adventure-filled vacation. Why Singapore still wins you over? Despite all the complaints, high prices, strict rules, and polished streets, Singapore has a way of winning over even the most skeptical visitors. That's why it's called Singapore. The strict rules keep the city spotless and safe. You can walk around at midnight without worry, and that peace of mind is priceless. Yes, it costs more, but Singapore delivers quality. A world-class MRT system, spotless hotels, and hawker centers where you can enjoy Michelin-starred meals for just a few dollars. Even its cultural neighborhoods, while less raw than Delhi or Beijing, are accessible and fascinating. In a single day, you can explore Chinatown, Little India, and Kampong Glam, experiencing Asia's diversity side by side in a safe, welcoming environment. And its small size, which some see as a drawback, is actually a plus. Everything is close and easy to explore in just a few days. No wasted travel time, no stress, just convenience. Singapore isn't chaotic or gritty like some of its neighbors. It's clean, efficient, diverse, and modern. And that's exactly what makes it special. At the end of the day, Singapore might not be for everyone. Its strict rules, high prices, and polished streets can feel overwhelming or too perfect for some travelers. But for those who appreciate safety, efficiency, and a unique mix of cultures all in one compact, modern city, Singapore truly has a lot to offer. Now, what do you think? Do you agree with this video? Tell us what you think by leaving your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos.